Matchmaker.fm connects podcasters and guests. Welcome to Matched, the show where we talk to some of the most incredible guests available for an interview right now. I'm your host, James Mulvany, founder of Matchmaker.fm, and this is Matched.
I'm Julieta from Mostly Nothing podcast, and you can find me on Matchmaker.fm.
And I'm Diogo, also from Mostly Nothing podcast, and you can find me on Matchmaker.fm. Yeah.
Awesome. And to start off with, we got a couple of icebreaker questions for you. So if you could take yourself back to high school, what would your favourite subject have been back then?
Ooh, back to high school. I really enjoyed history and science. They were both, one of my favourite subjects back in high school, I'd say. But at the same time, I was really also I had these this arty side of me that sometimes came out. But they were probably my favorite.
If I could go back, probably, I would say maybe philosophy. I think at the time as a teenager, I was much more into, let's say, biology, maths, that kind of science. But now as I grew up a little bit, I think I would be much more interested in the philosophy class. Yeah.
I think it's funny, isn't it? How perception. I think my favorite class was possibly drama, because you just got to mess around loads, you know.
It's true, yeah.
Okay, and if you could learn one new professional skill, what would it be?
Ooh, professional skill. Probably to play an instrument. Is that professional? Does that count?
It could be.
I would like to learn to play an instrument. I think that's a really nice way to spend your free time. And Diogo's an amazing guitar player, and I just get I'm so in awe when I watch him play, and it inspires me a lot.
What instrument would you learn?
I don't know. I love the violin. I think it's beautiful. I don't know if I'll ever. I just have to sit down and do it. But yeah, that would be my dream if I could.
Or maybe the piano. Besides guitar, I would love to learn the piano, but I just know the guitar. But in terms of a skill I would really love to perfect, I'd say probably Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I started doing last year, and then with the COVID pandemic, obviously all the gyms closed, and now I haven't been training, but it's something that I really look forward to going back to and actually developing. I'd say, yeah.
What's the difference between Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and normal Jiu-Jitsu then?
Well, I think the original Jiu-Jitsu comes from Japan. And I think it was more focused on how to throw your opponent on the ground, a bit like judo, but don't quote me on that. That's just my perception of it. And then Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu kind of took it to the ground. So it's much more focused on, let's say, grappling while on the floor and how to submit your opponent through, let's say, a choke, armbar, whatever.
Awesome.
Very intricate.
I wouldn't want to pick a fight with you.
No, don't worry. Super peaceful. Yeah, but I love martial arts. Yeah, it's true.
Okay. So then let's kind of get into about you guys. So do you want to sort of start off by introducing yourselves and tell us what you're doing?
Yeah. So we are Mostly Nothing podcast, obviously a team of two. More recently, we changed our focus to questions of the mind, consciousness. We're very interested in psychology, neuroscience, research into psychedelics also. So, around that realm of knowledge. I think in the beginning we were focusing in a lot of different things, and then we realized that it would be a better option to just choose something a bit more niche. And that's what we've been doing.
Has that helped your podcast grow, do you think, just having a defined niche as opposed to kind of being very broad?
Oh, absolutely. We saw a change right away. As soon as we decided to, make it a bit more niche, we started creating this community of people who really wanted to know more in regards to those things. And it's amazing. We've really, built some amazing friendships with some people. So yeah, definitely. I think it's a great thing to do.
Okay, cool. And what kind of got you interested in this area in the first place?
Ooh.
So I think Diogo and I, we really bonded over podcasting. It's something we listen to, and we would exchange podcasts and, discuss podcasts. And at the same time, we love to discuss ideas ourselves. And, it kept on coming up, the thought of, why don't we record this? Why don't we record this? Why don't we, share this? Maybe there's something that, could be of use to someone. And we, one day literally just decided to do it. And we did. And we, launched Mostly Nothing. And we are here now.
Almost 1 year ago. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's crazy. It all started in a conversation that we had in the balcony, literally during the summer. That was it. Yeah.
And what do you think you've gained out of running a podcast for the past year then?
Well, I think, we've learned so much because of how much we've been researching into all these new topics, things that were completely alien to me. Even as a nurse, mental health in general, psychology was never something I was interested in. And we learned so much. It allowed us to just even see life in a different way completely. It's actually amazing how it changed who we are. And now, I'm studying psychology now. Julieta is also thinking in doing the same. And that idea kind of rose from the podcast.
So it's almost been like a kind of personal development tool for both of you then.
Yeah.
That's amazing. That's great. Why did you decide to join Matchmaker?
So having guests for us was always very important. We think, in order to learn, we really need to be able to speak to as many people as possible, people, who have expertise or, experience within those certain fields. And we also want to be a platform to allow people to speak and share their ideas across. So it's always been so important to us. So then to have a platform that allows us to display what we, what content we have to individuals who are hungry to share their knowledge and their wisdom, it's a win-win situation. It's like a no-brainer for us. And I came across it and, it was such a great decision. Like off the bat, we started creating these beautiful relationships with people, and and
it was actually amazing to see the support from friends and family, how they got so interested in it and saying, oh, well done, and encouraging us. I think we also found that very, very moving almost. It's lovely.
Cool. What have you been a guest on any other podcasts?
Yes, actually, just recently, very, very recently, like past week, with I'm Half Kidding podcast, and it was the first time that we were guests, and it was really, really, really cool. It was an awesome experience. Just realizing that there's other podcasts listening to us and actually becoming interested enough to then reach out and ask us if we want to be guests. It's just an amazing experience, really.
Do you think that's something you're going to keep up? Like, is it going to be a tool that you're going to use to kind of continue to grow your own podcast, do you think?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, like I said, it's a win-win situation, and it really is a no-brainer. You're really doubling those chances of getting exposed. You really, really are. And you are creating these, who knows, like lifetime relationships with these like-minded people. It's really that bridge and bringing this together. So absolutely.
And at the same time, you're learning so much, obviously, by sharing ideas. And we should always assume that the other person knows something we don't. And this possibility of having all these discussions with people from different corners of the world it's amazing.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think if you go into any kind of interview situation, either as the interviewer or the interviewee, and just go in it with like an open mind, you're always going to learn stuff. You're always going to make good connections, and it's just a fantastic networking tool. I think it's like, if you think about podcasts, always think with podcasts, you would never meet otherwise. Like it allows you to create such a diverse network and meet such a wide range of people that otherwise you just never encounter. So it's absolutely fantastic. Okay, cool. Have you got any advice for someone who's thinking about starting a podcast, knowing that you've kind of been in it for a year? What have you learned? What are the main things that people need to think about when they're getting into it?
I think one thing I would say is make sure you're definitely passionate about the topic. And if you're struggling to work out what that topic is, I think try to be aware of what comes up in conversation for you. What is that you know that you could speak about endlessly for? And that's how we realized what we wanted to speak about. There wasn't ever a day that went past where we didn't somehow speak about the mind or consciousness or one of those deep questions. So I think it needs to be something that really sets your soul on fire and you can keep talking about, because otherwise you won't be able to push through when it gets a bit tougher, because it's a hard process, especially if you're starting off the ground. So you need something that will keep you pushing through.
Yeah. And at the same time, like we were saying in the beginning, the importance of choosing something that is a bit more niche, but at the same time broad enough so you don't, let's say, run out of new ideas to share, really. And I think that was really the most beneficial change we made to our podcast when we made that decision. Because in the beginning, we were talking about AI, nutrition, and all these different kinds of things. And then we just realized there's no way we'll be able to research enough content like every week if you keep changing topics. And so it's much better to focus on something a bit more specific so you can then develop your knowledge within that realm.
And what benefit do you think bringing guests onto your podcast has?
Having guests on our podcast, I don't think it would be the same without them. I mean, as great as I think we have conversations, and we have really good, conversations together, but I think we've decided that it's just something we find real importance in. Like I said, we want to be a platform that gives people that space to, speak their opinion and speak their thoughts and speak their truth. And I think that then allows, the listeners to think deeper and be more curious. And I think that's our end goal. So with guests, it really allows us to do that.
And just to wrap up, kind of like another icebreakery type thing, if you could be a guest on any podcast in the world, which one would it be?
Oh, that's a no-brainer for us.
Easy, Joe Rogan.
Everyone says Joe Rogan.
Oh, honestly, who doesn't want to be Joe Rogan?
Or Sam Harris, to be honest. I absolutely love Sam Harris podcast, but there's so much we need to learn before I think we're worthy of going to have a conversation with Sam Harris.
The Joe Rogan podcast, I would be like scared that I'd run out of stuff to say because they're so long. It's like, there's a lot of pressure, isn't it, having to talk for like 3 hours.
But he's so great, at getting people to keep talking, and get them comfortable. And that's
what we want for our podcast. We want to have a very relaxed vibe, informal, but at the same time, we want to be sharing things that might be scientific, and we don't want to be just talking nonsense, right? But
what's your average sort of episode length?
So it used to be a bit longer. Like we were like ranging about the hour, but now we've decided to cut them about half an hour. We find that's where it's like the sweet spot. We can get into a bit of depth, not too much. We're not Joe Rogan yet. When we get to that level,
But we would love in the future to have a bit of a longer format. Definitely, that's what we plan. But I guess we need to build our audience first to get to that level.
I think it's always an interesting question, like long form versus short form, especially when you get started, because this is like one of these questions that I get asked all the time, like how long should a podcast be? And it's quite difficult to answer that question. But I think 30 minutes is always a good amount of time. And but then again, there's lots of podcasts that do really, really well, that, like 10 minutes long or even like 5 minutes sometimes. So it just depends on the audience and the sort of the topics, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it really, really does.
Okay, guys, thanks very much for your time today. Just to wrap up, how can people find your podcast? How can people get in touch with you guys and find out more about what you're doing?
All right, so we're pretty much in every platform. If you search Mostly Nothing on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Podcast Addict, all
the whole shebang.
Google Podcasts, we're everywhere. In terms of social media, we're more active on Instagram at the moment. So if you just search,
reach out to us, guys.
There is an easier way to get booked onto more podcasts as a guest. Join Matchmaker.fm for free today and start making connections with podcasters who are looking for guests just like you.